Hi everyone, welcome back to my creative corner tucked away in the Pennine Hills of Lancashire in the UK. Today I'm sharing another colour spotlight video with you, and this one is all about neutral colours. So I've gone ahead and marked out my page and I'm going to paint my swatches as bunting. So these are some of the watercolour palettes that I'm going to be using today. So I'm going to swatch out a number of different colours from my palettes. There will be some lighter neutrals and some darker neutrals. And I'm going to swatch them in this bunting pattern that I've drawn out on the page. And I'm going to use my favourite brushes, these Rosemary & Co brushes. They're the pointed round series. And I really love these brushes. They hold the perfect amount of water, but the pointed end goes to a fine enough tip to get a fine line, but isn't too pointy that it kind of makes the edges all scratchy. So I do really like these brushes. And first up, I'm going to use the Gallo colours. So I'm just putting a little bit of water onto those colours first of all, and now I'm going to swatch them out. So I'm starting off here with the buff titanium. And the next Gallo neutral is this slate grey. This is a really transparent colour and is lovely. You can't quite see because of the shine on the paper, but you'll see better once it's dried at the end. So the last colour that I'm swatching from the Gallo range is the Roman Black, and you will see that as I lay this down and wash that colour out slightly, that this is a really granulating black, which is really lovely. So next up are my Michael Harding watercolours. I've only got a small selection of these colours, but I did buy a neutral pack, so I have quite a few neutrals in this range. These watercolours are really lovely, really heavily pigmented. They're just really nice to use. So this first one is the buff titanium. And this one is the neutral grey. And last up from the Michael Harding range is the Vine Black. Now I'm moving on to the Isaro watercolours. So this first one is called Beige Titanium. And this one is the Grey Light. I've now moved on to my Daniel Smith watercolours, and I've got quite a big collection of these. There's some really lovely colours in the range, some very traditional and some really granulating colours, which I do tend to really like. So this first one is the Buff Titanium, and this was actually the first Buff Titanium colour that I ever owned. And Buff Titanium's a really good colour for creating more pastel shades when you mix it with some of your other stronger colours. So it's a really nice colour to definitely have mixed in with your collection. And this is a more recent addition to my Daniel Smith collection. This is the Grey Titanium, and this is a really lovely light grey. And that brings us nicely onto this darker grey, which is Graphite Grey by Daniel Smith. And both of those colours are relatively new to my collection. I got them at the same time. So I haven't used them lots and lots at this point. So I am excited to use them a little bit more and see how they mix with other colours. And last but not least from Daniel Smith is the Lunar Black. So next up are my Roman Szmal paints. Again, these are really pigmented paints. They're a little bit sticky to use. They use honey in the binder. So you do need to just pre-wet these really to make the most out of them before you start painting. But again, really, really lovely saturated colours. So this is the Buff Titanium from that range. And this is the Aquarius grey. So we've just got 2 more browns left to go. So these are the Schminke watercolours. And from this set, I'm going to use the Haze Black is the first colour, and then Mars Black is the second. And you will see once those samples are dried, just the difference in those 2 blacks. Haze Black has a slight blue undertone, and both are really granulating colours as well. And the final range that I'm going to be using are Winsor and Newton paints. And again, 2 different blacks from this range. So the first one is the Ivory Black, and then second is the Lamp Black. So with the paint swatches complete, I'm just going to go over the hand lettering on the page. I just wanted to talk a little bit about this because for the longest time I avoided putting any hand lettering in my work. I just found my own writing on the page quite jarring. It didn't look as nice as other things that I saw online. But it was still something that I was really interested in. So I've adopted a bit of a cheats method to this. So I have some print-offs of different letter formations, and I just kind of cobble those together in pencil and then go over with the ink work afterwards. And that works for me. It does what I need it to do. I don't want to create massive hand lettering pieces. Don't really have the time to commit to all the practice that it takes to really perfect that skill. So now I'm going to put some of these colours through the paces and actually create a floral watercolour wreath. So I'm just sketched out there a circle in pencil just as a guide so that I get kind of the shape of the composition right. And I'm just adding in now some basic flower shapes, and these loose florals are so easy to do. I would encourage anyone to have a go. You can see there that I'm just creating 4 or 5 very similar shaped petals, leaving a gap in the middle to put the centre of the flower in afterwards. And watercolour florals were actually the kind of the first type of art that I started trying to create. Yeah, they were what got me started on my creative journey, and they're definitely something that I return to time and time again to paint. So here I'm doing a watercolour rose, so you can see that you start with some darker colours in the centre, and then gradually water those colours out to form some petals around. And yeah, the trick to these is that it's just a suggestion of the flower. It isn't an accurate botanical representation of what that flower looks like in real life. It's just that representation of the shapes. So the trick with creating a well-balanced floral wreath is having some flowers of different sizes. So here I'm putting some larger flowers in, again, just the same kind of idea, a slightly different shape, more elongated petal, but just going round in that circular shape, adding those petals in. And in nature, flowers are always different, no one petal's the same, so you don't have to have petals that are exactly the same, because that just isn't how they would look in nature, which actually is a really good thing because it gives you a bit of creative license when things don't quite go to plan, which, believe me, they often do when I'm painting these pieces. Yeah, so I'm just, for balance in the overall piece, I'm just painting a second larger flower there. And And I did debate, but I usually like to work in threes. So I did debate putting a third large flower in, but there's just not quite the space there to do that. So I decided to put some smaller flowers in, and then in a while you will see that I do fill in some leaves and things in that space as well, which just balances the piece out nicely. So you can see that I've just been putting the stems of the leaves in. So I like to do this first before actually painting the leaves, so that again I can get a bit of balance in the composition where I want things to go. So once those stems are painted in, I then go back and paint the leaf shapes in. So here I'm adding some lighter single leaves that are a little bit bigger, again just for a bit more variety in the final piece. And then once I've done this, I add in some leaves in pencil here that you can see in pairs, and then go back and use a bit of wet in wet and multiple colours this time to create a bit of variety in these leaves. And now I'm going to add the finishing touches, which will really pull all this piece together. So I'm starting off by putting the centre of the flowers in. And first up, I'm using this Nouveau glitter marker, which just gives a lovely subtle sparkle on the final piece. So now I've switched out to a Sakura jelly pen, again just for a different colour really, to give more variety. And this is a Faber-Castell watercolour pencil in Payne's Grey. And I love adding pencil work to my watercolour florals. It just makes them pop a little bit more off the page. So I'll use this for both the centre of the flowers and also to add some random details to the outlines. And you will see when I get to those outlines, it's not about being really precise and going round exactly the shape. It's about picking out just little details, almost like a highlight, I suppose. And it just gives some more visual texture and interest on that final piece. So here are the finished pages, the finished swatches and the floral wreath. I hope that you've enjoyed that today. If you have, please give me a thumbs up. It really does help me to grow the channel, and ring the bell to subscribe, all that stuff. And until next time, wishing you a happy creative week. Bye.